Okay, to start off, we're just going to be creating a background for the Youtooz Cuphead Devil plush. So first I'm going to be creating the yellow poker chips that the devil's standing on in the reference photo, but we're going to make them a little bit bigger so the plush can sit on them. Here I have some foam core that I'm slicing with my crafting knife into long strips to create the shape and the base for our poker chips. Then after they're all cut, I'm going to go in again with a crafting knife and create little cuts going along each strip so we can then fold it into a circle. These cuts should not make it all the way through to the other side. Foam core is essentially like a foam sheet with thick paper attached to each side. So when we're cutting, we just want to try and cut through the first layer of paper and a little bit of that foam sheet. Using the strip, I'm going to roughly measure out how big I need to make the top and bottom of the chip on another piece of foam core. So when I'm drawing out the circles with my compass, I'm actually going to make sure that the circles I'm making were a little bit smaller than the circumference of the circle that I originally traced, because it's easier to resize the border piece to fit the circle rather than to recut the entire circle. So after I've cut out all the circles, I'm going to use my hot glue gun to glue on the border. Now I'm cutting some thick mixed media paper that we're going to use to cover the poker chip base. This is the layer that we're going to be drawing our design on. After the paper is glued onto the chip, I'm going to start tracing out the poker chip design. I'm measuring out the circumference of the chip so I can get a rough idea of how many colored lines there should be and how far apart they should be. After it's all sketched out, I take some water-based acrylic paint and color it in. This is my favorite part of the process. It is so satisfying. After the paint dries, I'm going to go over it with a thick black fine tip so it can match the style of the reference photo. Next up is creating the background. This part was really simple. I just taped down a piece of multimedia paper with painter's tape. I put quite a bit over the edge because I wanted a clean white border, and then I just took my paint out and painted it yellow. And you might notice that when it's wet, it looks like the paper has gone a bit wavy from absorbing too much liquid. But I let the paint dry and then I put the paper between two large books to flatten it out. And after like about an hour, maybe a little less, it's basically as good as new. After it's flattened, I began drawing the white design with a paint marker. It doesn't show in the video because it was an afterthought, but the piece of paper ended up being a little too short for my liking, so I painted a secondary piece and attached them with white tape, as you'll see later in the final product. I also wanted to create a little sign for the devil to hold based off of the title in the reference photo. So as my second piece of paper was drying, I got to work creating that. As you can see, I created a paper floor just by using yellow paint marker and drawing a tile design using a ruler. And there's the final product. I really love the monochrome yellow look of this scene. It creates a nice, fun contrast for the devil. And a really cool seat of poker chips for him. The next diorama will be for the Mugman figurine. I love that scene in Cuphead where Papa Kettle is making them breakfast in their cozy little house, and Cuphead cuts his pancake stack and his plate in half just to share it with Mugman after Mugman's pancakes fall on the floor. So I really wanted to create that scene for this background. First, I started out by sketching all the items that are found on the wall in this scene. My plan here is to create all of these items and cut them out and give them foam backings before I reattach them to the wall, just like I do in many of the other crafts, to give the dioramas a little more depth. I'm sorry this part's so unsatisfying to watch. My marker was really running out of steam here. After I finish coloring, I use my crafting knife to carefully cut out all of the items. Next up on the list is the table. I just drew an oval and then set up the bottom half of the table so it would extend past the oval, like it would have little wings. The idea was that when it's cut out, the wings would properly wrap around the oval and it would be a 3D table. And honestly, it kind of worked. I even created little legs for the table to stand on, but they were later kind of abandoned when I realized that the paper legs definitely couldn't hold up the giant stack of polymer pancakes that I planned on making them hold. For the pancakes, I needed to put down a silicone mat because my cutting mat does not mix well with polymer clay. Plus, it's just easier to remove and clean up polymer with silicone. So I got my two pancake colors and layered them on top of one another and cut them out into little pancakes. I actually searched all over the craft store for a mini circular cookie cutter, but literally all I could find to cut the pancakes in a size that I wanted were these plastic Easter egg lids. So that's what I'm using here. After they're all cut out, I'm gonna cut them in half and stack them once again. Next, I'm gonna make some melted butter to add to the top and a broken plate for the bottom. So this is them after they've been baked, and I think they turned out pretty well. Finally, I have the wallpaper background to make. I just used my mixed media paper with some watercolors to do this. In the show, the paper kind of looks like light brown, dirty wallpaper, so I'm gonna water down one of my brown colors and get started. I'm painting in different directions here to try and somewhat mimic the look of wallpaper by creating a little more of a cross-hatching texture. I realize that you probably can't see this very well on video though, so sorry, take my word for it. Also distributing the paint unevenly so it again looks just like old worn wallpaper stained. So here I'm just roughly placing everything on the sheet to see what looks good. I'm also going to cut out the top part so we can have that peeling wallpaper with the wood wall behind it like in the show. And next I'm going to remove everything and color in a little bit more shadow where I placed things. Here I'm cutting little foam core pieces that will be added to the back of each object to put on the wall. And last but not least, I glued everything to the base for the final reveal. I love doing Cuphead stuff. It's such a warm drawing style that's honestly just really fun to replicate. Finally, for the Mugman plush, we have two outfits, / one of them's kind of a diorama prop, you'll see. So first up is Mugman's prison uniform from the show. Don't be fooled by how fast I'm drawing this. Measurements were definitely taken and prototypes were made before I landed on this final outfit blueprint. It's definitely challenging to make a full body fit out of paper for like a squishy round plush. So as I'm sketching, I'm also labeling what parts will be in black and white to avoid any mix-ups when I'm coloring. After I color it all in, all that's left is to cut out and attach it to Mugman. Next we have his earmuffs and tree, also from a scene in the show. This is, I guess, more of a prop than an accessory, but we're gonna make a big paper tree for Mugman to sit on. First, starting out with his earmuffs, I'm gonna draw a smaller circle inside a larger circle, and the larger circle is gonna be cut and then re-glued to make the earmuffs 3D. You'll see what I mean. You can see I'm making cut lines with the pencil, And after cutting out the earmuffs, I'm gonna cut along those tiny lines with my crafting knife. With that, I'm gonna fold the pieces down to create kind of a bowl that I can secure with hot glue. Perfect, so his earmuffs are now done. Moving on to the final prop for this project, the giant tree. I'm breaking the tree down into 3 separate parts because it's definitely way too big to fit on my piece of paper. I went over the lines with a thicker marker here because I felt the fine tip wasn't defining it enough. Finally, I assemble it with hot glue. I also added a sketchy looking support on the back that I made out of foam core and painted brown so it would blend in. It started off as a nice clean support, but after some trial and error, I realized that the plush was a little heavier than I thought, so I had to add in a few extra legs. Thus the sketchy. Don't look at the back. So here we go, that's him on the tree. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let us know what craft was your favorite down below in the comments section, and don't forget to subscribe.